What are some of the common myths about D2C you would like to debunk?
Number one, D2C is pretty easy to deal with. It's not. Second is you just spend a bunch of money and then people will come in. That is also not how things works. If you talk about the matureness of experimentation in India, a lot of people are, able to put forward that kind of effort because it takes a lot of time. Someone who is single-handedly managing it might be super difficult for you. You might have to acquire a lot of trust within your org to put forward this idea. The transition from your order one to order two to order three, and multiple orders. The first stage, they are very skeptical. You, as a brand, have to walk them so that they get their aha moment with your product. Data is very fragmented. It comes from different tools. You have to do a data dump and you have to do a lot of Excel and then get a sense of data. So that's pretty challenging in that case.
Welcome to the final episode of CRO Wizards Season 2 by VWO Podcast. With hours of in-depth conversations, we talk about using CRO to deliver what your users want, while also driving long-term growth for your business. Before we speak to our guest, here's a very quick overview of what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform that enables you to gather in-depth user insights and build winning experiences across your website and mobile app. VWO Copilot, our AI champion, handles the heavy lifting of suggesting test ideas, creating variations, and finding insights, so you can focus on making strategic decisions that drive growth. Now, without further delay, let's jump right back to this conversation.
We are excited to welcome Sanmaya Biswal to the show this time. Sanmaya's career journey is nothing short of fascinating, from starting as an intern at 17 to leading growth for renowned D2C brands like Neeman's and Bummer. Sanmaya has solved key challenges around retention, COD orders to prepaid conversions, AOV growth, and customer LTV. Currently, he drives growth marketing at WhatsApp Wellness, one of the rising stars in the health and fitness space. You must have seen them on Shark Tank India. So, can't wait to hear his insights on scaling D2C brands through smart growth strategies. Well, hi Sanmaya, welcome to CRO Visit Season 2 by VW. How are you doing today?
Hey, hi Gaurav. Thanks for inviting me. It's such a pleasure. Watched the previous season's videos and very fascinating how the depth of insight shared on this show. So super excited to share everything. I know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Likewise, a pleasure to host you. And, the kind of experience that you carry into the D2C space is something that exactly a lot of our customers, listeners, they want to relate with. So, looking forward to get those insights and, how those can be helpful for the viewers. So, we shall talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, would love that.
All right. So, before we start, tell us something. What are you working currently right now? Anything personal and professional? Anything new? Please share something about that.
Yeah. So in professional setup, we are doing a bunch of experiments right now. I think the volume of experiments have increased quite a lot. So previously we were doing around one or two tests every month because we are at a very nascent scale. Right now it has picked up. We have doubled down numbers in last couple of quarters. Now it has gone to the roof. Now we are building the teams, building hypotheses, and doing a lot of bunch of tests while also bringing a lot of activity model to it. So that's on a professional side. On a personal side, it's just going AY and unable to cope up with my personal and professional life. So just Sundays chilling out there, nothing.
Well, I can completely relate with that. And I think I'm sure you are definitely finding some time to, make sure it is balanced in the both aspects. But glad that, you could give us time as well. So, yeah, cool. So let's get started. Sanmaya, I've been wanting to, ask and start with this, that because you have led growth stories for different D2C brands. I remember vaguely last month you were also wrote about some of the, top tools which are being used, as a tech stack in various e-commerce and D2C brands as well. So In your view, what are some unique challenges and opportunities for D2C brands today?
Got it. So D2C in India is very interesting problem statement, right? If you think of, you're not just selling a
Right.
physical product, but you're also selling a lot of complexity with it, where it involves trust issues, where it involves operational issues, and a lot of things, right? In D2C, we have this thing called COD. Now, all of the customers love COD, but brands don't do. So there are key difficulties in if we remove all the basic ones, that is to attract a customer, retain them, and so on and so forth. The second challenge is to just navigate around how do you get your customers to, one, keep coming back and also with a higher value prop, not just not value prop, but a higher, spending capacity here. So that, for example, now if you are selling something at 100 right now, if your customer comes and buys something even at 150, that's an additional revenue value, right? Not just an LTV
Correct.
perspective, but also it increases the perspective of that, right? So right now we are working on
Right.
that. Second, which is quite a challenge, is getting a lot of data in and then making sense of that data, right? You might be all scaled up brands might have got a lot of data, but the issue is always in understanding, getting a sense of that data, and then putting it into action. That has been a lot. It's a biggest challenge what I would see, because the data is very fragmented. It comes from different tools, like what I
Correct.
mentioned in that post exactly, right? That top tools, great experience and everything, but most of them are fragmented. They don't talk to each other, right? And unlike tech space where you can just see a developer and integrate all of them, it doesn't happen here, right? So you have to do a data dump, and you have to do play a lot of Excel and then get a sense of data. So that's pretty challenging in that case. Now, apart from that, typical operational challenges would be day to day around, like, how do we fix our conversion rate, how do we fix our AOV, how do we fix our RPOs, and sort of stuff. So that remains constant. But from that, this is what a typical challenge would, I would say, not just me, but a lot of my friends in the same space handling the same capacity of brands, or even more around. Some of the brands have also did an IPO, I think. So yeah, if they are also facing a challenge, then surely the most of the brands would be.
100%. 100%. So, Sanmay, you spoke about few of the different challenges. You started with COD. You also spoke about data, being fragmented over here and there. We'll definitely come on to the, gathering the data aspect and making the sense out of it. But just as a buyer as well, and there were a lot of questions whenever we used to buy from a new brand, that if COD is available, then there is okay, just in case if things don't work out, then probably let it come at our doorstep, and then we are happy to deliver it because of
Yeah.
the trust factor. Is that the only thing about the COD being challenging, or there are something else as well?
No. So from a brand perspective, COA is challenging because yes, the mentality from the user end is, yeah, the COD gives them an extra edge of protection, something kind of like a invisible insurance. But from a brand perspective, there's a loss because it's a transit, right? A physical product will move from your warehouse to some different address in different area, different geography of the country. India is a vast country, unlike smaller countries in European nation, where everything can be shipped quite easily within a couple of days. Let's say you have to ship a product from Delhi to Trivandrum. That's a pretty long
Correct.
journey, right? And during that journey, a lot of things can go haywire, right? There could be mishandling of the product, and then once the product reaches the customer, you might not find it attractive because it might have been damaged, right? Because of a long transit. Now, even though it's a short transit, if you go and send it to the customer within a day, they would say that, hey, I ordered it just out of curiosity, now I just don't want it. So there are these typical challenges which are very nuanced. But apart from that, challenges around how do we ship faster, right? Like nowadays, you might have seen a lot of brands doing same day delivery and next day delivery, right? That's what we are also trying to do
Correct.
to curb our RTO. So RTO is like the return to origin. So you have placed the product, but then you don't accept it, and it comes back. So typically, that's kind of additional 2x to 3 4x loss. Now,
Yeah.
how exactly is it? Because your product is transited. So once the area of the product, let's say you have a shelf or a warehouse, that area gets allocated to a different product set or different line, right? So now the product is removed. So there's a transportation charge there. Then in transit, if it's a bigger transit, then there is a transportation charge there, basically which we call handling. Now, once the it reaches on ground, from there, there's a last mile charges, and then from if an RTO actually happens, then there's a retry mechanism that goes on. That's another charge, and post retry, then it comes back to you. So forward and then backward charges, and it involves a lot of steps. So typically, what we have seen, an RTO causes a lot of revenue loss, not just revenue loss, but also a customer loss. You haven't acquired a customer. If you think it deliberately, you haven't acquired it. You only acquire them once
Yes.
the
Yes.
product is delivered, right? So that's
Correct.
typically the challenge of COD is. But unlike the typical narrative that you should, if that's the case, then switch off your COD. That is never going to work because we tried, we tested it a lot, but the point is, it just is an invisible insurance, right? Even if you are a person who would be doing a prepaid order, if you don't see a COD, you would find something fishy within the brand, right? And you just see that your bulk of your orders just going down. There might be a awesome set of customers who would place their first order COD and the rest of the orders prepaid. So that transition you have to do as a brand. You can't just pause it. The answer of just switching it off is just like, okay, you are there in the war with all the countries, but if you want to be peaceful, so I will not act. Then your territory is going to be taken by someone who is willing to do that and then optimize. So yeah, that's how we believe as a brand. So yeah, but there are different schools of thought. So
Makes sense. Now I definitely understand. Like there has been a lot of efforts put out whenever a COD option is just introduced. It is just not like as easy as it sounds, to a buyer or a customer. But I definitely will keep this in mind at the
yeah,
next time. All right. The next thing, I often hear growth marketers talking about the importance of aligning tests to improve certain key business metrics. You spoke about metrics, initially as well. So I wanted to understand what are some of the metrics that you specifically focus upon improving through these tests, and how do you prioritize which metrics take precedence over the others?
got it. I think I get this question quite a lot, right? Now, my role is pretty, not very particular department specific. So, for example, there would be a performance marketing department, which and they have their typical metrics as CPA, cost per acquisition, and then they optimize a couple of things there, right? And then there would be a website optimization team. Then there would be a retention team. So all of them have different metrics, but just giving you a perspective on a business level. Typically, for someone who leads a digital business or a digital business arm, and that too in e-commerce, the typical metric which is quite important out of your acquisition and retention is your conversion rate and your AOV. Now, how do we come at this? We use trial sheets quite a lot. We are a very fundamental first brand, so we test all our metrics, put them through pressure test. So what do I mean by that is we measure all the uplift that a metric would give us, and then compare it to our P&L if it gives us optimum output or not. So for most of the D2C brands which I know, If you can take care of your baseline acquisition and baseline retention, on top of that, if you can fix your conversion rate and AOV, that gives a bigger impact than what you would do by changing a couple of things here and there in your content strategy and all. While that is important, but might not give you that sort of leverage on your bottom line. So, conversion rate, and
Right.
because when if you think of it in a broader perspective, if you increase your conversion rate at similar cost, you're getting a lot of more customers. So, you're improving your first. We are they're just opening up broader customer pool, not just customer pool. You're also improving your LTV by some case. If you don't do anything, just improving it because the volume increases, right? And by improving an AOV, you're just factoring the thing that, okay, I have similar number of customers coming in, I just have to increase 2 rupees. Just think of the impact when Zomato, like a platform, having great business rates.
Massive.
Yeah, just adding 2 rupees gives them a kind of
Yes, yes.
a side towards profitability. If that's the case, and Dikandar will says it in public forums, then it is surely a thing, right?
I think a very right example over here. Uh, Absolutely makes sense. So I'm going to come back to the first thing whenever when you were speaking about challenges and you were also speaking about data. So my next question is actually around that only. And how are you right now gathering data on customer behavior and preferences? How do you put them to use after gathering them? What are some of the things that you particularly look at whenever you are gathering this data? So would love to know on this part.
Got it. So there are two kinds of data set which we use for customer data gathering, right? Or data collection, you can sort of say it. Still
Mhm.
Sheets is our data warehouse for some reason. But one is pre-acquisition and then there is post-acquisition, right? Pre-acquisition is
Okay.
something because fundamentally your customer hasn't invested in you than, let's say, or your
Yes.
other brands or competing brands they might have bought, right? So pre-acquisition, your ideal data or set would be collecting. So we do it through a couple of user case studies, through our post, some pop-ups or looking at different user interviews and all. Uh, so that's the first part of data collection. But what typically we do post, that is looking at what are the typical challenges, right? Now, this is the first part of data collection where we see natively what people or users say to us. For example, let's say there's a bounce off on a website, and out of that, 2% of them have filled up saying that, okay, these were my typical challenges. Once I get to know that sort of specific thing from the customer end, I check a lot of recordings, user recordings. So I think VWO has a platform that can help you to see the recordings of that user, and we deliberately see all the recordings. Now, you can't see exactly all of it. So here's our mechanism, how it works, and it is same for pre-acquisition, post-acquisition. So we have this thing called best case scenario and a worst case or a non-case scenario. So best case scenario in this case is your customer is already converted. So for example, your hypothesis is I want to convert first-time customer with one session. So one per session you want to convert a number of customers, right? So what do? You first look
Correct.
at, okay, from the similar source of acquisition, what is the customer behavior for someone who has converted, someone who successfully converted within the similar session versus someone who has been taking multiple sessions. What's the difference? So I'll give you an
Right.
example. One of our case scenario was a couple of times user used to find someone who typically would come and then check out pretty easily, would first come to the page, check out the user reviews. They would read the first three reviews very carefully, and then they would hop on to checking ingredients, and then they would complete the checkout, right? So that's a behavior we noticed. That behavior was not there for the people users who didn't convert it. Now we tried to, because the reviews are always there on the page. Why didn't they get it?
Right.
So then we check heat maps, then we check scroll maps for that. And then we get to know that, oh, the users are just going it to just two folds down, right? And the reviews are there on the fourth fold. Now, what we did was we did an experiment where we just elevated the placement of the three, four reviews only. I don't want to expose it to
Okay.
all the reviews. We did a version of that where we exposed an entire review with a line where they can just check all the reviews in just the first case, and then we just had one or two, three reviews just as a confirmation bias. So it's there in UX principle, and that sort of experiment did work out really well. So that is a pure example of how you find patterns. Now there could be multiple ways. This is how typically I've seen it work. Now, post purchase, the data collection becomes very easy because now you have customers,
Correct.
but in our category, it's very taboo, right? So let's say you are not having a good sleep. You might not be open about it, right? You might not be saying that, hey, this is the reason why I'm not having good sleep or something. So sometimes we have to just emulate certain hypotheses by looking at the baseline data, right? So it would be okay. We are seeing this trend that people with assuming this is a just a case scenario. Assuming you saw a pattern that people who have added their work email in during their orders, they have a higher tendency of purchase of sleep gummies than people who have general email ID, right?
Right.
Then your typical hypothesis is these people are just like me working day in and day out, right? So they need more sleep because of that. So you make your content, everything tailored to that, right? So that's a typical data collection we do via, again, surveys and a lot of feedbacks, looking at reviews and so on and so forth. But finding pattern is typically similar. We find a group which has done with similar attributes which has already executed that desired thing which we want, and then we see where is the gap, and then we try to build hypotheses that can help us in mapping that gap, right? And it is across all the platforms, whether it be meta ads, whether it be attention, whether it be just anything. In fact, it works in to a certain extent. It works for e-com ops as well. E-com ops is pretty challenging, but it also works there. So yeah, that has always worked. So
Understood. Very, very interesting example. Uh, Looking at data, finding pattern, working on creating a hypothesis, and then make sense out of that. That what is something that is being common in different those patterns. Got it. Got it. Cool. Uh, the next thing is something that you might have spoken a lot about, probably recently, or maybe in the last few months, about the 22x ROI campaign. Uh, while you have already shared it with a lot of people over LinkedIn and probably other platforms as well, but we would love if you could share with us, what is this 22x ROI campaign, the sandwich framework? Would love to know
God,
about.
God. It's a pretty interesting one, but I have done it multiple times across, categories. So it's not very category agnostic. That's the thing which people ask me that is it very category agnostic? It's not, but it is scale agnostic for sure. For example, that might not work for a brand at a smaller scale doing certain level of orders, right? It would only and only work if you have, scale at a minimum of 1 lakh customers of database if you have.
Right.
So it's nothing, right? It's the sandwich strategy is basically a launch strategy. So let's say you want to have a big launch and you are a very category focused brand. What do I mean by category focused brand? Um, we as WhatsApp Wellness are not very category focused brand. We are a very product focused brand where we launch specific product and not entire category or a collection, right? But my previous
Okay.
experiences all were in a category forward brand. So let's say be it in apparel, be it in consumer goods, they launch a different variety of products within a similar category. In that case, you never know what's your hero product, right? So you might be throwing all your, arrows here and there, just testing out and then burning a lot of cash. So here's what I came in. So I've noticed that in your day one of your launch, you get the max amount of bulking of the revenue. That's the day one of your launch, and that's
Right.
the day last of your, launch. Then between that days is typically what I call ghosting period for brands. You then just send it and then they
Yes.
typically ghost it. Right? Let's say you just got a message from a brand saying that hey, yeah, we are launched, or you're somewhere, you're traveling in Manali or something. Yeah, you're just not there in your network area. You saw that okay, I'll come back and then I'll check, but they haven't
Correct.
deliberately said that my sale is over in next 2 days. They might have mentioned it, but not very loudly, right? And then one fine day, once you're just back, they'll say, Happa, and this is today is our last day, and we FOMO, we'll buy. Typically, that's how it works. And a lot of brands just burn a lot of bridge with their customers because of that. Then they get a lot of returns and all this sort of things as well. Sandwich framework is pretty simple. You put your best foot forward with the biggest segment. So it's very segmentation based strategy where you take bigger chunk of segments on day one, and
Okay.
then reduce it to smaller set of minute chunk of smaller, just a sandwich. It has a bread which is a loaf which is a bigger part, and then it has smaller ingredients. So day two, day three would be smaller segment testing and getting juice out of them, the best juice out of them, because it is very personalized, very contextual, right? And on the last day, based on all the intent and everything you have done, folks who have the max intent shoot them with the best offer. Folks who have just mild intent, we just categorize it, but it's still a bigger set of things. Okay, let me give you an example that would be a better one. So let's say you're
Yeah.
launching earpods in a new set of earpods. Let's say marble earpods, right? Um, and you are a company name XYZ Electronics, right? So on day one, you launched it with your major segments that people who have already bought earpods in the last 2 years, right? Or people who have bought earpods in the last 2 years twice or thrice or whatever. Now these are very broad set of segments. It might have a lot of audience. So you just do a normal blast order. Now, this is pretty general. This remains constant across all the brands. This is not something that is something which I have discovered, right? But what you do a change is instead of just ghosting them or doing having any sort of comms within the transition phase or the ghosting phase, which is on day two, you divide the major chunk of your the day one segment into smaller segments. So, for example, instead of just having a segment of users that have bought TWS earpods for in 1 year, you are just saying that users that have bought TWS earpods within let's say Batman category, and that too within 6 months. And then you have a let's say Powerpuff Girls category or something. Just you're just mix bagging it, and you're just finding small, and then you can, because you have a collection now. Your collection is also not just spreaded; it's just shrinking down. They have smaller collections, but it is very personalized because you can predict it, right? It's your customers, typically you should be able to predict it. You divide it into smaller segments, and you would observe that you will get max amount of ROI. So let's say the cost of each message is 1 rupee. You would get, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
24, 44, 56, because smaller segments but giving maximum returns, right? Because you're not shooting to everyone. And then on the last day, people who have engaged with you have been there in that journey. They have the max impact of it, and instead of shooting it to everyone, you make it little personalized for people who have been there in this journey with you, or who have been engaged. Shoot them with a specific kind of offer or something which you can. We don't do offers, by the way, in whatsoever is. We treat it in a very contextual personalized way. You can also do it in similar way and launch the campaign. So this way, what will happen? You will get the max revenue impact within the first day and the last day. You'll get major ROI impact between those days. And overall, if you would manage, your NPS, everything stays intact. You haven't breached this frequency cap per customer. You aren't spamming every day. You're balancing your comms strategy. You're balancing everything. You are also personalizing it, and you are also trying to drive traffic to almost all the category collection. While then you would get to know that okay, this works because of this. Right? So that's what my typical sandwich strategy is. And the reason it is sandwich because it has two layers, then it has a lot of
Understood.
things. You can then so it has a lot of nuances as well. So when you do a day one, you can instead of doing category based, you can do a positive category and a negative category. What do I mean by positive category, negative category? So let's say positive category would be someone who has bought within 6 months, same category, something, something, that's a positive. But someone who hasn't bought the same thing or hasn't done very similar thing is a negative category. You just change one attribute. So it's not something which I have discovered. It's just I've blended in. It's called RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value. You just change one of the element in that, and you would be able to build a lot of segments there. That's exactly what a sandwich strategy looks like. Pretty complex to say, but pretty good to execute.
So what I understand from all of this is creating those segments is very important over here. And at the same time, now since you have experience, you are able to go very deep in terms of what those smaller segments should be. You spoke about positive or negative categories, and some how one who is probably starting this strategy, how they should come up on working on these, preparing these new segments, how they can when they are in the very initial journey, how they can come up with, because this is what I believe is the most important part in this. How can they get better in terms of doing better segmentation?
Got it. Got it. So the first case, so the first layer is pretty simple. You have a biggest layer that typically everyone who is experienced on experience, they do it any which way. So I'm not going to talk about that. Now, when dividing into segments, there's a thing called RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value. Recency is how recent the act was done. Let's say the act was conversion,
Okay.
how recently it was done. So let's say in my previous example, it was within 6 months, right? And then
Right.
frequency is how frequently it has been done within the previous recency pattern, right? How many times they have purchased within 6 months. Monetary value is how many times within 6 months, X number of frequency, what is the monetary value? Example, let's say if I have bought these AirPods twice within 6 months, and the cost of the AirPod is 1,000, then max monetary value would be 2,000 bucks, right?
Yeah.
But let's say if I have done the similar behavior, recently purchased within 6 months, bought twice, but I have bought AirPods, but also I have bought a headphones. Their monetary value would be different, and my
Correct.
tenacity to pay more is pretty higher for this segment than a lateral one, right? So
Yes,
have
yes.
that differentiation. You would get most of your segments within that. Before that, have your baseline RFM. Baseline RFM is you do nothing, but still you have a recency, you would have a frequency, and you have a monetary value. Like in a general, for a universal audience group, for your brand, what is the recency, frequency, and monetary value? And then look on positive factors. So let's say in our case, it would be recency of last 4 months or be a quarter, frequency of 2x, monetary value of more than 1500, right? That's the benchmark. Now, a positive segment of that would be recency. I can reduce it to two, but typically 3 to 4 is quite optimal for me. Like for someone who is catering to 6 months, 9 months, they can reduce it. So
Right.
recency I won't be changing, but frequency is something which I can change because they are a month-on-month brand, month-on-month purchasing kind of a product. So ideally, we can change the frequency value. Monetary value, I'm not changing quite often because most of my products are pretty similarly priced. And so I might not get the max value out of the monetary aspect, but someone who has variation in pricing would get. So number of segments for me would be less because I have constrained me to metric. Now, how do you go more advancing? More advanced would be if you would add category nuance to it. If you would add,
Hmm.
other set of nuanced stuff. For example, category nuance. If I have bought recently within 6 months twice only TWS and that through the new collection, right? You can also
Got it.
go towards testing that. I saying someone who has bought recently within 6 months twice monetary value same, but and that to same category, but have always made a prepaid order.
Hmm.
You can change, you can add a loads and loads of things, right? With experience, I think you would be able to think through very differently. But yeah, that's the base start where you can just take a algorithm grid and just plot out all your segments. And you would be getting do a math. If you take a probability calculator, it would be something huge number. You would plot out all your baseline segmentation and then plot it everything. Would at least get a 100 to 200 to must. Would at least get.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good number. Great. So I think this will come, for every new marketer, it will come as an experience. Uh, got it. Fair enough. Now, the next thing that I wanted to ask is something I guess every D2C brand probably just a year ago or a few years ago, they were not very excited or not very focused, but with the quick commerce coming up, uh, you know, every D2C brand is competing against marketplaces to stay ahead. Now, at the same time, what does a D2C brand, should focus on the experimentation part, and how does it play a key role in giving the D2C channel an edge?
Got it. So we have a belief that channels are very uncontrollable for a customer. You can't control a
Yes.
channel, right? Uh, Sometimes what happens, let's say we drop a specific product or a specific category from, let's say, spending, let's say we have 100% budget. Out of that, we spend 10% in a product A and 15% in a product B. So let's say out of someday we decide that okay, because of the LTV value of certain metrics, product B is not performing well, but a product A is. Let's increase its spend tier from 10% to let's say maybe 25%. Without doing anything on the marketplaces, you will see a gradual hike there, right?
Oh, is
And
it?
same goes for quick commerce as well. And I have noticed it cross category. So I have always believed, and it's not just with because I'm in D2C, I'm favoring D2C, but it's has always been there that customers, we should make sure that our customers are not, and we are not thinking very channel agnostic. We should think of,
Hmm.
sorry, we should think very channel agnostic, right? Not very dependent
Correct.
on that. Okay, my core KPI is D2C. Yes, that's for sure. But I can properly optimize for that. I can't say that, hey, Gaurav, we have been buying from D2C, you should buy from there. I can't do that. I can't control that narrative,
Yes.
right? So
Correct.
what we typically look at is what is the kind of overall uplift we can get, right? And all the metrics and everything, we still measure it for D2C. So let's say we have conversion rate, it is for D2C, not for the overall brand, because I can't measure it, right? So all of this is what supported towards brand, the revenue uplift, the brand uplift, the category uplift, everything that we do in D2C reflects in marketplaces as well. So we are not very, channel focused, but yes, we are focused on how we approach stuff. For example, let's say in retention, we have max control. Typically, what we have seen, we have max control within the first 4 months. So M1, M0, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, M6 to a certain
Hmm.
extent. We have max control up there. Post that, typically, we have done a survey with customers. Typically, customers like to have it. delivered within a couple of minutes. Sometimes because they're traveling and they just want delivered right now. By the nature of D2C, you can't do it. Right?
Yeah.
So we're not very focused on that part, but yeah, in general, we are focused on the business level of uplift, and that's how I treat it at least.
Got it. Got it. Now, as I keep looking at your LinkedIn post, you have spoken about turning the first time buyers into repeat customers. Uh, any top of the mind tests or experiments from a brand you worked with that you could share with us that led to this outcome? The first time buyers into the repeat
Wow.
customers.
Interestingly, I got the insight of doing such from the principles of UX. That's called as framing, right?
Okay.
So typically, what happens when you think about this statement, people try to focus on, hey, what's your revenue rate through CRM? Hey, what's your WhatsApp repeat rate? Hey, what's your repeat rate in general? But what mostly people forget is that if you don't have a good framing in the first place, you do the best of channel, you bring experts of everything, you might not be able to achieve the max uplift here, right? If the if your context has been set back. For example, you have been said that, hey, go to KBC and you will definitely win 100 crore rupees. KBC is just 7 crore, and max chances of you winning is
Yeah.
some percentage of it. Now, even though you had great experience, you would always have a negative thought of that show or someone who has said it, right? You would never want to believe in them, right? That's how typical human behavior works. And it's not something which I have discovered. It has been there years and ages. It's one of the UX principle called framing, right? And I learned it very hard way. It's a test which we did that if so what we did was, and I was back in Neeman's, we were thinking of how do we get most customers to repeat buy from us, right? And why are certain customers
Yes.
not buying from us? Uh, then we noticed that, hey, people who are using it first and using it with higher frequency, they are buying it often. That's a just a similar thing which we did on testing, right? We observed the best case scenario and we wanted to see where's the gap. Now, okay, we have this insight, but what do we do? Then what we did was we scanned all our ad copies. Then we looked at, okay, what does exactly the design and everything says? The design and everything used to talk about sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. Now, sustainability on the first is very, one time. That's what we realized.
Correct.
We changed the entire messaging towards comfort, and it gave us an uplift, but not that much, but it gave a good amount of uplift, right? Decent uplift. Then we added more changes to that. Certain the same similar kind of thing which we did at WhatsApp Wellness as well is that we noticed what is the content consumption rate from the day they get their gummies to the day when we launch our first refreshment campaign. So we have a mechanism to track that, and then we have segments to test it. So anyone who has less engagement with us on that time frame is very unlikely to repeat, do a second purchase. So that's the first thing which we try to solve is to remove all the blockers that would have, because fundamentally, if you notice, all our products would typically give you a result within 90 days. But that means they have to at least consume it for at least 75, 85 days at least. And
Correct.
in India, if you don't see result within first month, they will just discard it. So what we do is we use a lot of motivation factors. We assure them that if you follow this, this is typically it's gonna happen. If you notice, the transition from your order one to order two to order three, order three to order four, and multiple orders the customer would do with your brand. It's very the first stage they are very skeptical. They're less skeptical than the one who haven't ordered from you, but still they're skeptical because you haven't delivered result.
Hmm.
Then you have
Correct.
You as a brand have to walk them so that they get their aha moment with your product. It's a thing I have realized from tech folks. They build great products, and the core of the product is the aha moment. Right? So, in let's say in all the cases, right, what's a wellness? It's a beauty gummies. You just consume it for 7 or 8 days. You'll just see that the amount of hair fall you used to get is just reduced by certain things. Now a lot of people won't just see it. So you have to just make sure you induce the idea that, hey, have you seen this change? So people who haven't noticed that, okay, yeah, I've seen this change. So maybe they're saying,
Yeah.
okay, let's give it another time. Okay, एक और महीना देख लेते हैं. So that's kind of test which we typically have done, and the framing is very important. So let's say a product like a Shia gummies, it's perceived very differently in India and versus outside, right? So framing of that product, if not done correctly, gives a pathetic retention versus if done correctly, it gives a better retention. So let's say if you're positioning then your gummies in terms of giving energy, boost, strength, and something, your conversion rate will be a little pissed off. So you have to do a mixed balance of it, but eventually you'll see a good amount of M0, M1, M2, M4 movement. So yeah, it's just reducing the friction in all this case of purchase. So from order one to order two, you're just convincing that this product is something you have. For that, you need to know what your customer needs. You need to know the core of the needs. So, for example, when we did a lot of user calls at the first, our customers said that, hey, we need fancy sneakers and all. What they typically need was comfort all day long, right? That was a
Right.
need. We induced it quite a lot of. And then with from order two to order three, then the factor becomes that I need variety. From order three to order four, then the factor needs that I need it for my entire family. The order of proposition
Correct.
changes. For similar in case of bomber, I need something different. That's the order one to order two transition. From order two to order three, they have realized that there's some sort of comfort. I need more pairs with a decent budget, right? So we position it as a bundle builder. From order three to order four, it's about how can you improve your hygiene, right? For WhatsApp and it's the same thing. First is inducing that this will work. Order two to order three is
Hmm.
it is working, just keep on the track. Order three to order four is hey, it has already worked. This is a better version of you. Now give yourself more tries. That's typically how it has been. I've given three use cases, so I think it would resonate to everyone across everything.
No, absolutely. I mean, the initial experience is all about building that trust because, again, the narrative is, quite different on how do you use these gummies. People have doubts related, on the trust factors. What are the authenticity? What are the things that is being used in these gummies? And once that is done in the probably first and second while, then you focus on the other aspects at a later stage.
Yeah, okay.
Got it. Got
But
it.
knowing the core insight of your customer is pretty important. What do they care of from a first degree perspective, second degree, third degree? You will notice that transition the degrees in
Yeah.
various orders. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. All right. Now, this one is my favorite. The next question, it comes a lot. I mean, on an average, if I'm speaking to, let's say, five brands in a week, then probably two or three brands will be having this particular sort of notion where they are still receptive, and particularly I'm talking about India, they're still receptive to the idea of using experimentation as a growth channel because they still feel experimentation is something that you are not sure that how exactly it is going to turn out, and everyone is focused on ROI. The leadership is just focused on ROI. Nobody wants to actually give time towards experimentation. uh, so how what are your thoughts on this? What is the level of experimentation maturity as per you in overall India market as well, and currently at WhatsApp Wellness, and how can we actually change that mindset? that they do not rush on to those results, even if their initial experiments are not going to give them right
Got
results.
it, got it. So the way we approach what's a wellness is pretty, very standardized. The day when I first pitched this idea, I gave it a very good shot of, hey, this is what the best case scenario would look like. This is our investment and this is
Mm-hmm.
our typically that's what people show in all the presentation. But I also show them that, hey, this is the mid case scenario. It's just that this is the transition space. And hey, this is the worst case scenario.
Mm.
And then I typically do the same thing, just map the bridge or just do a bridging, right? Okay, but if within the mid to or bad to mid, if you would just able to transition 10% towards a great one, what would be the impact? 20% towards a great one, what would be the end impact, and so on and so forth. So that's how I was able to, make my leadership believe that okay, although most of the vision was also with me and my founder, so it was pretty easy, but not that. Because we are a small startup, we are have limited budgets, and we are very, bottom up focus. So we don't want to hurt a bottom line quite a lot. So that's how typically I have done. If you talk about uh, the matureness of experimentation in India, I think it's lacking quite a lot. Not a lot of people are, able to put forward that kind of effort because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of different sort of skill set as well. So someone who is single-handedly managing it might be super difficult for you, and you might have to acquire a lot of trust within your org to put forward this idea. Every time it goes, then you have to hire folks who can help you execute that as well. So I think by doing that, we can eventually transition. But yeah, but just knowing about how this works and how it impacts overall gives a better sense of idea and gives a slight bit of push. And the more amount of winners you get, and the less amount of losers you get, that's how it depicts the direction of the narrative, right? Okay, right now X number of brand, all the brands are doing the test, and mostly 60% of them are getting best results. People will go ahead and then give the best shot. Right. So
Got it. Just a follow up question on this part. A lot of times, whenever, as you said, you have to hire folks who know stuff about this, they have this right skill set. Now, whenever they are hired, probably the leadership comes with ideas like, we need to revamp the whole website. They want to change almost everything in the website. Let's give a very good feel and everything. Now these folks who are trained enough, they also see that there are things that they can already see that okay, this needs to be changed. So they see that, see, experimentation culture can be brought at a later stage, but let me just revamp the whole website and a lot of things will fall in place. This thought, how how dangerous this thought is, and if it has come to you, then how do you tackle with it?
so I think not a lot of people get an access to an article called "How did HP" or what was the brand name? I forgot. They did a whole revamp, and the next thing they know that their CEO was fired after a couple of years because their online sales got to almost 70-80% loss. Right. So I think that article really helps. Apart from that, you know. What typically when all these kind of things come to end, all of us states that, right? It's all about if you can showcase them that hey, this is how it is going as of now. These are a couple of things. Your test, I'm putting it in a calculator. Typically, I have this calculator. It's very out there in public, built by CXL, one of the top institute or teaching conversion rate. Put your the hypothesis there, see your numbers, and then deliberately say them, hey, this is what the number looks like before doing the test. If I'm gonna execute, if that 10% comes, well and good, but this is what the negative side would be if it has, right? Are you okay with it? If they are okay with it, then you can't do anything about it, right? If they have to do it, then you can't do anything. But by just
Correct.
putting it in, it again comes under the framing effect, right? You're just framing an idea. Hey, this is how it works,
Yes.
and this is how it will
Yes.
go. Are you okay with that? Because the company is not mine,
Hmm.
it's yours.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? If yes, and typically most of them then they see that, hey, he's talking something sensible. Let's see how it picks up, and then and it has to do a lot of with how you have built trust within your org as well. If I haven't done anything great, even if I put forward anything, it would go to a trash. But if I've done something great in some other areas and then I've come forward with certain contexting, I've put my best foot forward, right, with confidence. So
Understood. Understood. Thanks for answering this. This was something very insightful. Now, the next question is actually, a further step towards experimentation, where we also add personalization. Now, experimentation and personalization are both key to improving customer experience. How would you prioritize and allocate focus between these two? Because one where you are giving experiences and one where you're just doing different sort of experiments. So how do you prioritize?
got it. So the answer is pretty simple. We look at the uplift percentage always. We just look at the delta, everything which it's gonna be. Sometimes it is tied up with nuance. Giving an example, let's say there would be personalization on a retention perspective. Now, the uplift from that might be slower, might be smaller, but overall it gives my brand an edge. So in that case, I might over prioritize it above everything. So let's say the prioritization score is 8, and above that is something
Hmm.
8.5. I might prioritize it pretty high. But typically, we always focus on that PXL framework, and then we map out our uplift percentage. If that uplift percentage falls good, then it is always highest to lowest, always. That's how it works. But sometimes it is brand nuanced. For example, if you want to test out certain categories because the brand is experimenting and putting in more amount of money. So let's say there's a brand that very famous in fragrance category, they change their entire product offering within 5 days, right? So in that case, it becomes very nuanced, right? So I
Yeah.
think we all know that brand, but
Got it. Okay, so continuing to the discussions of what are things to do and what not to do uh, in a D2C company, what are some of the common myths about D2C that you would like to debunk, for the early stage marketers?
number one myth is D2C is pretty easy to deal with. It's not. It's at the front end, it always looks pretty easy. In the back end, it's always messed up. Just move out from your marketing department and just have a word with your ops team. They'll just, if they would be giving, they would have an idealistic world where they could kill 7 lives, go count your total number of marketing department folks. They would all be killed. So it looks easy, it looks very fancy, but it is not. If you look at it from a very growth perspective, so I have seen both the sides, so I can see it very easily. That I've seen the ops and a business perspective with growth, and also seen just the marketing perspective and just the acquisition perspective. Right. So there's the first one. Second is you just spend a bunch of money and then people will come in. That is also not how things works.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
if you want, just do it with a random spammy website. You will see some sales for sure, but that won't be sustainable. So that's another thing. You can't always spend a bunch of money and get all the customers. It doesn't work. We talked about a lot of things in this session only. We talked about training, we talked about retention. All of them matters a lot, right? So that's the second. The third myth which I've seen is that getting repeat is pretty hard, but looks very easy if you do a very simple WhatsApp message. Just do it for, yes, go forward, do that WhatsApp message, but give me an answer of doing the same thing over next 2 years and then come back to me. If you have got similar results, would love to know how did you did it. But yeah, that's how typically it goes, because a lot of them have a thing that, hey, we just shoot up a WhatsApp message and it always works. Yes, it always works when you're doing it. It's like a fire sale, right? If you put a 30% up there and then shoot a message, obviously it would work. Just remove the discount and then see what is the impact. For example, we have never ever given discount. We rarely run discounts. I can give you two offers right now. You'll find it almost everywhere. One is a flat 200 rupees off on our website, which is a 22% off if you calculate it across products. And then on repeat, we give it max 25% off. That's it. The difference between them is just 3%. Right. So we don't do offers. It's just not there in our DNA. Plus, it's not sustainable on the bottom line, right? But still, we
Correct.
have around 45 to 50% retention rate. So it's something built on fundamentals, right? So that's a typical myth which I've seen. And the fourth one is that if the space is crowded, you should always stay away from it. None of the space is not crowded. You talk about softwares, you talk about AI, you talk about everywhere it's crowd, right? Um, I post a job, I get 1,000 applications within a couple of hours. There's always a
Yes.
crowded space out there. You can't just complain out. Okay, there are two ways you go about complain things, or just try to do things right. I think that gives a better edge in my perspective. But yeah, people, they say that, hey, this is crowded, I can't win in this market. You would never win in most of the market. If it is not crowded, that means there's no money. It's the first principle. But
Got it, got it, got it. Thank you so much. This was very important to know about it. I mean, all these 4 points. Uh, just before the last point, you did spoke about AI as well. So let's talk about that as well. With all the rapid developments everywhere happening, and the new models which are coming, how is it impacting your work as well, in on a daily basis as well? How exactly are you using AI into that? Do you also see Gen AI as a catalyst for D2C growth? Right. So,
I think it's catalyst for sure. So from last couple of months, my team has been trained on how do they do better. So at first they were first trained on how do they do better prompt. Right now they're trained on how do they optimize that thing. Right. That gives them max efficiency on a, let's say, you have crunch on time and uh, you can't get hands on your copywriter. Here is the prompt. You got the prompts, short to copywriter, make the changes, you move forward. So that's typically, so instead of spending 1 day, you're spending almost 1.5 hours max. Because you're generating a lot of things. You're just removing a lot of things from their plate. You're just doing the last thing checks. There still would be human thing needed. No, content copywriting is still very nuanced, in our case at least. So there is still requirement, but yeah, the output timeline becomes very smaller in that case. So that's the content side of thing, but we use quite heavily in terms of data analytics side of things, where, hey, there's a data dump, help me analyze and try to get me XYZ points, right? Now, if you would notice, previously you have to do a bunch of sheets, you have to first clean that sheet, then figure out, okay, this is the metric, do a pivot table, do X, Y, Z, and then might be someday you would be able to figure out what is this is the output, right? But right now with the AI, it becomes very easy. But yeah, you just need to do a sort of validation. But yeah, that still the process is pretty easy on that part, if I would say. Again, building Figma files and all that becomes pretty easy. I think a lot of my time I use the Copilot version of VW as well. Not very sponsored, but I just love it. You just don't have to see all the recordings. You just have to do a grouping of the recording, push the Copilot button, gives you a lot of insights which you might be missed, right? After seeing a couple of insights, it's just
absolutely.
like the screen is like black, thing, and then you might miss that thing, but machine won't. machines are emotionless, and that's how it should be, right? So it becomes pretty easy. And now, if you want to go very nuanced specific, then you go and visit that recording. That becomes a very powerful thing,
Correct.
right? Because it gets combined. You just have a base level analysis of things. Now you just go and find out
Yeah.
nuances so that you can cater to a lot of edge cases. This is what I say.
Yes.
Also, my superpower. I like to figure out all typical controllable edge cases and work backwards to it. So AI has definitely been one of our catalysts. A lot of people say that it's kind of a barrier to that job, or they would lose that job. If you lose one job, you would also get another one. And the same field using different stuff. Now, as of now, you don't operate a bigger PC machine. There's no one to operate, but there's someone who can figure out programming within the PC. The PC folks are still building that PC. Mac has been there since
Correct.
ages. HP has been there since ages, and so on. So yeah, I think it's never an opponent of it. It's like a very catalyst kind of thing, and that's how we buy it and we use it.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, just the way I also try to explain it to my customers whenever they see how would we at VW are utilizing this AI capabilities, because not everyone has loads of time to look at each and every heat map or a recording, just to give it, just like you put it, to have a base level analysis once and then look at very specific things which you want to spend time upon. So I think that is something that I want to take it away from what you said. So great insight again on the AI aspect as well. Okay, all right. We are done with our main set of questions, and thanks for all of the insights which you shared with us. Uh, but just putting it away from our main questions, as a marketer, in your all journey, what is the best advice or kind of piece of advice you have ever received from somebody, from your seniors or from your mentor? Anything that comes to your mind right now?
And there are two set of advices. One is very customer centric. It's that always and always look for insights and patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and then you make a opinion or a hypothesis out of it. That's the thing which I've seen, because you will have insights, but if you don't have a decisive answer to it, the insights are again good for nothing, right? Uh, so that's typically one thing which I have learned um, through my years of experience. I'm working with brands, working across with people and different, and it has came not from someone who is in growth or marketing, right? It's very someone who has been very grounded in ops and sort of things, right? Uh, the second bit of advice is typically very personal. It depends on how you take it, but it's like listen to everyone, do everything what you think is logically correct. And that's something which I recently have noticed. It's quite interesting, and uh, I love to live by it on the times.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Cool. That is actually a great piece of
Hmm.
advice for our viewers as well. All right. Before we wrap up, let's put all of our energy in some very quick rapid fire questions. And I want to start with, if you were starting a career as a growth marketer today, what is that one thing that you would do differently?
Okay. Uh, I would first learn tech, and then I would have jumped into marketing. That just gives a hell load of leverage. Um, Although there's a different kind of wing of people who they would disagree to me, but yeah, that's what I see.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any newsletter that every CRO professional must follow, that probably you have also been following?
So newsletter specific, I think CXL one is pretty good. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can also read a couple of newsletters around. there's something called as Build for Mars, and it's a pretty good
Okay.
newsletter for UX case studies and all. I love to read it. Then Growth Designs is also something a good newsletter. VW also publishes a good one, but I think then it would be a lot of sponsoring in that case. But yeah, it generally publishes a lot of good stuff. I think you folks also partnered with CXL in doing sort of that. Um,
Yeah.
Apart from that, I typically look at other sort of landscape as well. So a lot of other industry nuances, like I think something called as Ecom Daily or something, and just gives the daily base of insights. These are a couple of newsletters which I follow.
Awesome, awesome. And what about books? Any books? Probably just three of the top books that you would recommend to the
Yeah, I
listeners.
think number one would be Don't Let Me Think. It's a pretty good book. I think it's kind of a white color book cover or something. So yeah. Don't Let Me Think. I think that's the book title. Second one is I just forgot. It's on. I read all of them, but the issue is I'm not able to recollect what's the book called. There's a statistical book I read a lot. So that's one.
Okay.
Then the third one is Principles by Ray Dalio, which helps. Not sure how it would help in growth marketing stuff, but just helps. I think gives better for stuff.
Awesome, awesome. What's your go-to travel destination?
Goa or Shimla maybe. I'm
Okay,
a very
okay.
different answer.
Which is which would get the preference depending upon the weather or
Depending on the weather.
just want to relax
Depending on the
depending on the weather. Okay, okay, okay. One thing that AI will replace in the next 3 years. Definitely not the jobs, but then what is it? Something that it can replace.
think repetitive tasks would be something that AI has already started replacing, and anything that is plus of repetitive tasks. For example, you just have to remove the background color of a repetitive task. It has
Correct.
already been removed. Just help me enhance the background. That's a repetitive plus task.
Hmm.
That is also being able to remove. I think eventually they will also be able to remove the lot of baseline data cleaning, data analysis, and all that sort of thing because it is very easy. And that's how AI is built. If you just notice, it's built on baseline data and AI ML, right? So if your job has an ML aspect of it, that means not the code. I'm just saying that if anything can be taken a source and then build on, then I think that is very easy
Hmm.
to be replaced.
Got it. Got it. If not a growth marketer, what other profession would you have chosen?
If not a growth marketer, I would have loved being a UX designer. Second
Okay.
one,
That's pretty close to what I mean, since you already work with
yeah,
a
I
lot
think
of
so.
designers as well.
But if very opposite of that, then I would have been a coder for sure. I think there's recently has been a love for technology, so would have loved being doing
Okay.
that.
Awesome. Awesome. One CRO metric that you wish people would stop obsessing
Page
over.
views, page views, clicks.
Okay.
I think that's something which we don't optimize. We never.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. All right. The last one. A dream or goal you want to achieve in the next 3 years.
So in the next 3 years, I would want to lead, complete the business line. Although I'm leading a part of it, where I'm leading the digital function of it, but leading an entire business and that too at a very good high scale is something I'm looking at. But let's see.
Okay, that is good. That is good. Cool. Thank you so much, Sanmaya, for your time. I think my follow-up questions were answered much more patiently, and I'm really appreciating the time that you gave us. Uh, Really got a lot of things cleared in my mind as well whenever I am speaking to marketers, e-commerce players. So every bit of insight is something is useful, and I'm sure it will be useful for our listeners as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Gaurav, for inviting me. It was such a pleasure seeing you.